Hello everybody and welcome to this new video. We are celebrating the 25th anniversary of Krita, and today here we have a very special guest, the Krita maintainer Halla Rempt. Halla has been the maintainer during more than 20 years. It's amazing. A very special day. Enjoy it. Hi Halla, how you doing?
Hi Ramon, nice to see you.
Celebrating 25 years is a significant milestone. What being open source mean for the development of Krita?
What being open source meant for the development of Krita in the past 25 years? Well, I would say it's absolutely essential, and that's for two reasons. First, of course, is that being open source, they have drawn on the contributions of hundreds of people. There are over 600 people in Krita's commit list, and that's just the development, not the websites, not the documentation, not everything else. And that's awesome. Whenever we got stuck somewhere, people could help us, and lots of people did. Finally, perhaps even more importantly, now that Krita is open source, free software under the GPL, it can never ever be closed. When over the years we've seen competitors disappear because they were bought out by companies like Adobe, we just knew we could trust in that Krita would just continue as long as there were contributors. So being open source is totally fundamental. That's never going to change.
Wow, this is very interesting info. Krita has been during these 25 years around, which is an incredible journey. How Krita evolved during these 25 years?
25 years, that's quite a long journey. I haven't been there for all of that journey, maybe only 21 years, which is still a long time. When I look back at what Krita looked like when I joined the project, you couldn't even draw. You could load images, add layers and move layers around, and that was it. So we started building on that. Rewrote the entire core of Krita. Core has been rewritten 4 times. And every time Krita became more performant, we started adding tools, we started adding firsts, like Krita supported an OpenGL-based canvas, GPU accelerated before Photoshop. CMYK for ages. We started implementing more and more fun stuff, more and more useful stuff. And then came the big break. We started listening to our users. We had these sessions, development sprints, where Krita developers and contributors come together. Mostly we work together, discuss what we are going to do in the next year, ever since our sprint at Blender Studios. And then we ask the artists to demo working with Krita. We just ask them, here's an hour for you, and we are going to watch you paint. Hope you don't mind. You can say anything you want, complain about everything you've got a complaint about. Anything goes, and us, the developers, are not allowed to talk back. We are not allowed to help you either, because we want to see what the problems are. And that kind of user observation really helped us improve Krita by leaps and bounds.
What has been the most creative use of Krita that made you think, wow, I never thought about that?
The most out there use of Krita? I guess that's the person who wanted to use Krita's high bit depth capabilities for making star maps, used enormous astronomical photographs and wanted to work with them. And honestly, I would have, well, I actually did say that, used FIPS for that, but it was quite outrageous.
Many users may wonder what motivates the team behind Krita.
What motivates us? I guess a selfish and an unselfish reason. The selfish reason is, this is the most fun work I've ever done in my life. I've worked for all kinds of companies, at least 6 or 7. And at only one of those companies we actually released the software I was developing on. Some companies just develop software to spend money. It's crazy. But Krita gets out in the hand of users. And that's where the unselfish part comes in, because these users tell us the sweetest things. Like that time I got email from someone in Malaysia. She was told by her parents that girls don't need to draw, so no, we are not getting you drawing software. Her brother gave her a drawing tablet, so she discovered Krita. And she could start making art. And she mailed me in tones of utter ecstasy. I can make art. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And that's just so motivating. It's an incredible feeling. So if you like Krita, think of telling us you like it, because normally we only see bug reports. Bug reports are useful. And if you make bug reports, thank you. But sometimes they can be a little bit demotivating because there are so many of them.
Can you tell us more about the commercial use of Krita?
Commercial use of Krita. It's of course totally fine. That's what we explicitly say in all our frequently asked question lists, in the about box, everywhere. But commercial use actually happens. The first time I heard of it was when we were presenting Krita at SIGGRAPH in Vancouver. We had a booth next to Blender. Thanks to Ton Roosendaal's really useful help, we were like, there's so much interest. So many people want to speak to us. And then this guy came up to me and he said, don't tell anyone else, at least for now, but psst, we've been using Krita in production for Little Big, which was an animation movie, I think, by Disney. I'm not sure anymore. So that was the first I heard of commercial use of Krita, and that was 2014, I think. Ever since, we've been getting sponsoring, we've been in touch with people using Krita commercially for games, for movies, for books, and that's just highly stimulating.
Okay, so we want to help Krita. How Krita is funded and how sustainable is for the future?
We already talked about that a bit. So basically there are two entities. On one hand, there's the non-profit Krita Foundation. On the other hand, there is the for-profit Halla Rempt software, that's me. And we split up activities between the two. The foundation solicits donations, which means it's tax exempt. Halla Rempt software sells DVDs and stuff, but of course that's hardly any income anymore these days, because we've got these great tutorials on YouTube. It sells Krita in various app stores. The two income streams combined, dev fund, one-time donations, income from stores, is enough to sponsor our currently sponsored team of developers and Ramon's videos. So that's quite sustainable. At least we've been doing this since 2015, with stores added in 2017. So we're doing a good job.
How the community has been supporting Krita and how Krita has been supporting his community.
Way back, when Krita was just a hobby for everyone who was involved, most of us didn't have access to digital drawing tablets. I started working on Krita because I got one for my birthday, but it started failing. So we did a fundraiser to get 2 Wacom tablets, an art pen. So that was when we noticed that, especially the free software community, it wasn't even artists back then, were really supported. And a bit later on, that was Lukáš. So we had this Slovakian summer of code student who went on to become a regular contributor. He even did his thesis on Krita's brush engines. He got 10 marks out of 10 for it because it was brilliant work, and his professors were so amazed that their student actually did stuff that was used in the real world. At the same time, we were like, we are porting Krita from Q3 to Q4, we are rewriting everything, nothing works, everything is too buggy for words. It's really horrible. At that point, Lukáš said, my last 3 months at university are supposed to be an internship. I have to do stuff relevant, useful. I would prefer to be paid for it a little bit. And because Krita at that time was so incredibly buggy, and we were fighting still as volunteers, as hobby coders, to get Krita into a usable state. So let's fund Lukáš to just fix bugs for 3 months. It was a huge success. Lukáš mainly wanted some money to pay his rent, but we could pay him for us, a decent amount of money every month. With the result of the fundraiser, so many artists, so many enthusiastic people supported Krita. 3 months became 6 months. And then a bit later on, Dmitry Kazakov has been doing brilliant work ever since his first summer of code on Krita. He was going to finish university, and I did not want him to take another job and lose him for the project. So we started doing some regular fundraisers, which actually got us a lot of publicity and was exhausting but fun to do. And well, Dmitry is still full-time working on Krita as a sponsored developer. So that.
Could you remember a time where Krita community came to help the development of Krita?
Worst moment was when the Dutch tax office noticed that, let's skip the complicated stuff, it's giving me a headache. Anyway, they wanted to have 24,000 euros in one go from the Krita Foundation, money which we didn't have. When we told the world about that, the world ran to support us, which was great. We actually from that moment on, we've never looked back. We've got a supportive community. We've got a development fund, which I urge you to join. Sorry for the plug. We do sell Krita in various app stores. App stores are absolute hell to work on, but it does pay our monthly. Thank you, community, for supporting us.
How Krita is helping users in learning the software or even coding the software?
We're trying to make Krita accessible or even learnable for newcomers. Well, in the first place, of course, we simply try to keep existing user interface standards. We're not trying to do weird new stuff. We just want people to be able to find everything in the place they are used to. If you've used a computer for the past 5, 10, 20 or 30 years, then nothing in Krita will really surprise you. That makes Krita in itself usable. We are, of course, also working together with our user interface expert, Scott Petrovic. He is helping us to design new features. Now, if you go beyond the level of the application itself, then documentation is really important. We spend quite a bit of time and effort on our documentation website. docs.krita.org doesn't just list all the menu options, also gives you tutorials about workflow things that might not be apparent if you're a novice user of digital painting applications. Because let's be clear on this, digital painting is a tool separate from everything else. I mean, yeah, I do wrong thumb, this thumb. I paint analog myself as well using oil paints. I draw, I sketch, I sculpt. And when I try to draw using Krita, I know that most of the learned habits don't transfer to a digital painting application. So we have an extensive website with tutorials, guidelines, tips. We also have a great community. And thanks to Raguka Matkanath, we have a user forum website, which is called Krita-Artists.org, just like Blender artists. It's totally based on that. That's a recurring theme. Whenever I think we need something new, I first look at what Tan's been doing for Blender, and then I just copy that. And I'm not ashamed to admit it. Our Krita Artists Forum is a huge resource where people can ask questions, but also find answers to questions that have been asked before. Finally, we invest a lot of time and money in Ramon's series of videos for our Krita channel. So thank you, Ramon, for working with us.
How customizable is Krita? What type of plugins or extensions Krita use or users can create for Krita?
When Krita was really young, Cyril Bergier first created the first scripting interface for Krita to be scripted in JavaScript, Ruby and Python. Wait, that's not actually the first. Our first scripting interface, KDE's JavaScript interface. I mean, you know that pretty much every browser except for Firefox these days is based on KDE's work on KHTML, a KDE-based web browser. That came, of course, with the JavaScript engine. And that JavaScript engine was a separate thingy that we could use to make Krita scriptable. So that was the very first thing. So we had first had JavaScript, then we replaced that with Cross, which is the thing that made Ruby, Python, etc. possible. Then we added OpenGTL, mostly forgotten these days. A one-on-one clone of something used in Hollywood, re-implemented that, or rather Cyril Bergier re-implemented that, and it could be used for lots of things, including creating entire new color spaces. Cyril got married and left the project, and it was basically unmaintainable, so we dropped that. At the same time, we ported Krita to a new version of the KDE frameworks. Cross stopped working properly, so we dropped support for that. Fortunately, back then, Krita had very few users, so nobody was really impacted. Then we ported Krita to another version of Qt and KDE, and which was a lot of work. One summer out on the roof terrace, when it was really warm, I took the Python scripting code from KDE's text editor Kate and copied all of that and fixed it to make Krita scriptable. That's the basis of our current Python scripting API, which is a little bit limited, but it's growing and it's still there. You can do anything user interface-ish in it and script however you like. And then, of course, we had this huge summer of code project where we implemented support for Disney's SE Expert. Makes it really possible to write script, generate stuff that will fill your layers with anything you want. We're actually not sure how much it is used, but it's extremely powerful. Krita is very customizable, and even apart from that, most of Krita is plugins. Every tool is a plugin. If you know a little bit of C++, I mean, I didn't know C++ when I started hacking on Krita, and I did fine in failing to do anything useful, which in turn attracted other contributors. Krita took off, so let's start hacking.
For the last words, thanks a lot for being available for this interview. I know you're really busy, so I appreciate it a lot. What message would you like to send to the Krita users?
Thank you, Ramon, for the interview. A last message for everyone who uses Krita? Use Krita more. Make art, make art, make art. I love to see all the art made with Krita. Anything you do with Krita is fine with me. Bye-bye.
Celebrate with us the 25th anniversary of development for Krita. Any feedback is really welcome. Raymond here as usual, saying goodbye and have a nice day or night. Thanks a lot for watching.